Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Nosferatu, brought to us by the Seta Corporation. Nosferatu is one of those cinematic platforming action games, similar to the Prince of Persia series. Basically, you have a lot of frames of animation, which gives it a really cool look, but at the same time makes controls a little bit sluggish and you have to compensate for it. The game is a difficult one, and the key to figuring out how to get past this one was learning which enemies I could skip altogether and which ones I absolutely had to battle with. As we begin the game, we have a nice little cutscene to kind of set the mood and tone for everything, giving us the backstory of Nosferatu before we jump into the game. Once we make it to the main menu, we're going to go down to configuration and change the difficulty over to hard. I will be getting the good ending in the game as well, which basically just requires you not to die. If you use too many lives, if you use last continue you will end up getting the bad ending once you complete the game. As we begin the game, we have a little cutscene before we're dropped into the dungeon and level 1 of the game. As we begin the game, we're dropped into this cellar. We're going to start off by pushing this block over to the left side and drop on down. As soon as we do this, a couple of enemies will start to chase us. Head over to the right and jump up, and then you're going to drop down the next gap where you see a treasure chest. Quickly grab one of the items from it. You can get multiple items from most chests in the game. Starting off though, I'm just going to grab the one crystal because I don't want to get hit by this centipede. Once I'm up here, you can actually run past these two gargoyles. Don't get used to it though, because the gargoyles in the later levels actually pounce on you if you run straight at them, so that's something to keep in mind. Thankfully, they don't do that though in this first level. Inside this little chamber is a blue crystal from the chest. Grab that before heading back out of the room. Over to the right, past the staircase we're going to take, is another open cell that you can enter in for another chest. Once you grab the item in this chest though, this zombie will start coming towards you. One little strategy I'm going to do against this zombie, which won't work against most enemies because it'll end up just hurting you by losing your power crystals, but for now we can jump into the zombie to knock him down and then just get past him out of the room. Now we're going to head over to the staircase to the left. Once you go through certain rooms, the doors will close behind you and you won't be able to go back, so make sure you've done whatever you want to in certain rooms before continuing on. In this room, we're going to slowly work our way over to the right. Wait, of course, for these things to lift up. You can run underneath them. Just make sure you quickly get past before, of course, they crush on down on top of you and end up taking out your life. Right past the next door we're going to take is another one of those chests, and we're going to grab ourselves another red crystal. A lot of chests in the game do contain multiple crystals or multiple items in each. Sometimes you'll get health items and the like as well as red crystals. So if you need the items, be sure to keep grabbing at the chest until you've gotten everything. In this room, we're going to go to the right, activating the switch so that we can get up here then and go to this chest. Now before we go to the right, which will cause enemies to pop down and potentially swing at us, we're going to drop down back where we came instead and run past the gargoyles, which is much safer. Over to the right, climb on up and be sure to do the jump over the gap. Spikes are instant death, as you can probably expect in this title. Now over here we have a giant Frankenstein monster. We are going to take this guy out. You can skip him a bit, but these Frankenstein guys can be a bit of a pain, and especially early on. I recommend doing this kind of timed jump and kick. It takes a while to take these guys out, especially the ones in later levels. Enemies increase in health the farther you make it into the game, so it can take a lot of kicks. But when you try to do your combo, a lot of times to enemies, they keep marching forward. And when they march forward, they run into you, knocking you down, not only losing some of your health, but potentially losing your precious red crystals. Those red crystals determine your combo, what you're able to deliver to enemies, and having the maxed out 9 crystals is one of the key things to do in order to make sure you survive through most of the levels of Nosferatu. In this room, we're going to push this wall over to the right and then climb up here and grab another one of these chests. This is one of those games with fall damage, so you always have to be careful when you fall down a ledge. If you're not sure, slowly shimmy your way down. Thankfully, you can jump by just pressing up or pressing down in order to scale back down, so it's pretty easy. You just have to always be cautious and know what you're about to do. Over here to the right, you can grab another crystal and get some health. Unfortunately, when you grab the blue crystals, they don't give you instantly the piece of health they give you, so you have to actually earn that. One cool thing, though, is red crystals, if you have the maxed out of 9 red crystals, you can actually replenish your health with the extra crystals that you have once you already have gathered 9. The first boss of the game is a werewolf-like guy, very easy fight. We're going to start off by doing a big combo, and then you want to just step away from him for a second. Don't get too close, he'll jump over you more often than not. If you're a little bit away and he starts walking back towards you, just take one step forward and deliver another combo. This is the only strategy you really have to keep doing until eventually he'll transform into a werewolf. Now, this is where things get a little bit trickier, but we're just going to stay right up close to him and keep delivering very fast combos. Wolves will start to attack us from behind, but these guys really aren't much of a problem, and usually only 1 or 2 get by before I've delivered enough combos to take out the boss. Once the boss is taken care of, though, the battle is done and you're moving on to stage 2. I enjoyed the little cutscenes between the levels, not only giving you a little cinematic experience, but also then showing you the map of the level, similar to Castlevania or the Ghosts and Goblins games. As level number 2 begins, we're going to start heading over to the right, and you're going to start seeing those gargoyles being able to jump at us. The thing is, you can actually jump as well if you time it right, and jump through them as they jump through you, so you kind of bypass one another, not colliding in the air, and you can skip them that way. There's also these giant flying eyes. They're extremely annoying, they run through you, and if they hit you, they're going to cause you to lose a red crystal. So my strategy for them is learning the few areas and hallways where they're going to be permeating. They're always in the same spots, so I've gotten used to knowing where I need to run and then do that timed slide to run underneath of them. If you duck, you can also get them to go past you. So if they're above your head, just wait for them to bypass you while you're ducking, and then speed to whichever direction you're trying to go. In order to run in the game, you double tap the button. It's extremely finicky, and even after hours and days of playing this game, I still make plenty of mistakes in the control department. So it's something that's taken me a while to master, and I'm still not perfect at it. Over here to the left, we're going to take out another one of these giant Frankenstein guys. This time we're going to do those timed jumps just like we did before. If you want to try to deliver those really quick combos, you can attempt to do that, but once we've taken him out, he drops another crystal, and there's another chest over to the far left, this one containing a precious blue crystal. Make a big giant leap over to the right, or just climb on up here. Climb up once again to push the switch against the wall, which will open up the gate just below us. Keep running over to the right, a couple of arms will pop out of the ground, so make sure that you're doing a running animation to get past, and then go up the staircase on the far right. The next room is going to start off with a giant mummy attack. If you time your combos right, especially if you have 9 crystals, you should be able to keep the mummy at bay. You can also do the jumping kicks on it, but thankfully the mummy isn't as bad as the Frankenstein monster. In the next room, we're going to start off by taking out the zombie guy. You could bypass him, but since he's standing right as we enter, I'm going to take him out. He does drop a red crystal, which then, since I have 9, replenishes the piece of blue crystal that I just recently picked up, so I have full health at 3 crystals. In this pit, we're going to jump into the zombie. Since he's very slow to the right side, we'll be able to push the switch and get up above him before he runs into us. Another zombie just in the next little chamber. Either take him out or just get past him and then go through the next staircase. In the next room, be very careful. There's a series of spiked pits. If you make a big leap, you can get all the way over to the far right side and grab a hold of that ledge so that the zombie popping out of the wall or whatever it is doesn't end up hitting you. There's just so many deadly traps in this game, constantly trying to do damage to you. Here's another one of those Frankenstein monsters. Just like before, we're going to do these timed jump kicks. The combo does work, but I always end up mashing the button just a little bit off and ends up causing that Frankenstein monster to run through me, and I just need those redstones, so I want to make sure I don't end up taking damage and just keep doing those jump kicks. Once he's done, drop on down, watching out for the gargoyle. If you fall down about the same spot the gargoyle is, he won't be able to see you, you can kind of just run past. This next area is very tricky. You have to get down to the bottom ledge platform. It can be hard to make that jump down or using the ledges, especially considering they break as you stand on them. Now down here, we're going to stay over to the right side, get into this chest so we can grab another precious blue crystal, and then run over to the left and slide underneath the giant eye. If you do it right and then immediately run, you can get past them, or like I said, if need be, duck underneath of them for a second and then continue along your way. Thankfully, this next area, climbing ledges, is very easy. Just tap left or right once and then press up in order to easily climb up to that next ledge. It can be annoying sometimes where you think you're in the right spot and the game just won't let you do the animation. But either way, we're going to come back down here, and now instead of going to the bottom like we did before, we're now going to go down the middle section and head over here and push this wall against the button on the right, which will open up the door. Of course, if you don't need that extra health item, if you don't want the blue crystal, you can skip that altogether and just go through the middle path and get through this level a little quicker if you like. In this room, we're going to make a couple of big leaps. You can see some enemies, but pretty easy to kind of get past some of them here. This guy, though, since I didn't make a big leap, I ended up falling early. I'm going to have to take him out. Then do a running slide, which can be a little finicky as well. Timing the button presses just right so that you actually activate the slide, and you also have to make sure that you have enough space between you and wherever you're trying to slide under that the slide actually activates. You need kind of like two walk spaces for you to be able to do that slide, so keep that in mind, and I actually recommend practicing the slide a little bit before you get too far into the game. Just like in the first level, you can kind of tell where we're getting near the end here as we make it to another big open area. This boss, we're going to start off by ducking in the center. This will cause one of them to go to the opposite side where the other one is, and then we can start attacking them together. This is the key to make this fight a breeze. If you can get the two enemies close to one another, just keep getting close and delivering those combos. When they get too far to the left or right, they won't be able to get hit since they're off screen, but hopefully they'll both jump over you, so just stand near that wall, and you'll be able to continue the combo kicking their butt all the way across the screen. Not every boss is super easy in this game, but thankfully, as long as you're able to get these guys together, it's not too bad of a fight. As level number 3 begins, we're going to start running to the right and making a big leap. If you time it correctly, you can get past the first enemy before he ends up showing up. For these very annoying flying weapon-like enemies, the key is to land on a platform with them on top of them so you're on the same space, and then quickly run whichever direction you need to. If you time it right, you can get past them before they're able to catch up with you. This next hallway, we're going to do a big run across as you can see all the arms reaching up. The big fat abomination enemy guys we will have to take out. I recommend doing a jump kick timed right to stop them. Then you can do a nice combo to send them back and then repeat the kick process in order to keep taking them out before eventually they should disappear and you can continue down the hall. If you don't take those guys out, it's really hard to bypass them, and they just usually end up causing me to lose some of my red crystals. Be careful in this hallway, not only from the enemies, but of course each one of these gates. I recommend just going through each one at a time, just so that you don't accidentally end up getting hurt. Now, on the third one, you have to do something a little tricky. Wait for the one to rise, and then run quickly underneath of it, hitting the button along the way, and then immediately doing a slide. It takes a lot of practice to get used to that, and you have to do it several times in the game, so thankfully you will have plenty of opportunity to get good at it. In the next room, do a running slide underneath and you'll land on this platform. As you can see, there's a chest over to the right, but we can't get it yet. We need to drop down here and push this wall over to the right side, which will connect these things, giving us enough space now to do a little bit of a run and thus a slide. Sometimes getting on the edge exactly where you need to in order to pull off the run, like I said, controls in this game are finicky at their strongest. Now once again here we're going to do another one of those button presses and run and slides. It's really tricky sometimes to hit the button and then quickly turn the opposite direction or whatever need be in order to get that run initiated. Thankfully, like I said, you'll have plenty of practice with it by the time you get through with this one. Once you land on the next platform, quickly get off of it because the platform will break away and your goal is the next staircase in the upper right. In this room, you need to quickly duck down and get off the platform, landing on the button. Duck as soon as you do though, so the spikes popping out of the wall don't instantly take you out. Then quickly stand back up once the spikes retract and get back up the wall so you can make it over. Yeah, another really kind of tricky spot and something you'll also have to get used to a few times in the game. Over here to the far right side, we're going to push this block over to the left. By doing this, it'll activate the door, opening it up, and we can kind of sneak on through once we got the wall over. In the next room, start off by running. If you do it quickly, you can get past that one zombie guy, but sometimes he ends up popping up and taking us out, or at least doing a little bit of damage. Drop down here and you'll see a button on the wall. Push that and it'll open up, of course, the gate to the left. Very slowly work your way through that you avoid all of the crushing needle spikes popping down. Another annoying part of the game is the timer. As you can see in the lower left corner, there is that time, and there are a few levels where it's a bit tricky to get through the level with the time that's given to you. There are a few hourglasses spread throughout the game to help you out, like the one I picked up in the previous chest. Here's another one of those blue crystals, and at this point I'm always gathering everything from the chest, because at any point I'm never sure quite what my health is. I'm usually paying more attention to what's going on screen as I'm timing all these extremely tricky maneuvers. So once I get a little bit farther in the game, I start to be paranoid about my health, picking up pretty much any of the red crystals I come across. In this hallway, we're going to do another big run over to the left side, sliding underneath, and then immediately into some jump kicks. If you can avoid the fat guy altogether, you can just kind of fall down to that next platform, but you may need to take him out before falling down here. At the very edge, be very careful. You have to shimmy on down to the platform below, not going so far that you hit the spikes, and then climb up here. Jump to the breakaway platforms, ducking on the first one, and then just make a couple of nice leaps over. Just time it right, don't take too long on them, and you should be able to get past without too much trouble. Just past that is another little opening. It's kind of hard to see, of course, because of the way the wall is set up, but there's another staircase with an open door just to the left of that. In the next room, start by climbing up here. We're going to drop on down and push this over to the left. This is how you end up getting that chest up above. If you don't need the chest though, you can immediately do a running leap in order to make it over to that right side, and this will allow you to also bypass the spikes that are popping out of that wall, and just be careful of the ones above. Down here, go to the left to make sure that you hit the switch on the bottom platform, and then climb on back up. The next little opening has two zombies. If you time it right, you can kind of jump past most of them, and then climb back up before they're able to swing. Make a couple of quick leaps over to the right to find yourself at another staircase. We're almost done this level, thankfully, as it's been the longest one by far, and the hardest one far and away. The next segment is very tricky once again. More spikes trying to pop out of the ceiling and take you out. Just time it right that when you hit the buttons that you don't immediately jump and run into the spikes. Just time it with each one. You should have plenty of time, especially if you picked up the hourglass in the previous rooms. So you should be good. Hit the switch on the far right, watching out for the books, and then climb up to enter that next door. This finally leads us outside and to the next boss encounter. This boss has two forms to it. The first one is the big one. The second one's a very annoying small flea-like enemy that we have to deal with. For the first part, immediately start by doing a combo. The enemy will fall over and puke. Once it does that, it'll stand back up, and if you time it right, immediately go into another combo, knocking the enemy back down. Even if the enemy is off screen, just keep doing those punches. He'll eventually kind of lurch his way back on screen and you'll be able to continue your combo assault. A very easy fight. Just make sure you don't get too close to him when he gets back up after puking. If you're too close, he'll potentially grab onto you. Now, once that first form is done, you have this bug form to deal with. You just have to kind of time your combos correctly. Just wait for it to get close, and if you time your punches right, you'll be able to knock it back without it jumping into you. A pretty annoying fight, and it will take several combos to take this thing out, but once you do, you're moving on to level number 4. We are now halfway through the game, and you can see the next level is similar to the one we dealt with in the first stage. It's kind of same dungeon-like setting, but this level is a lot trickier to navigate through. These stages are very maze-like, and it can be pretty easy sometimes to go down the wrong corridors or dead ends or places you just don't need to travel through. Be very careful here, sliding underneath the eyeball and then do another slide under the wall so you end up grabbing onto the wall above that spike pit. Over to the right, there's a bunch of these annoying popping out blade spikes. Just be very careful, do little jumps over each one of them to make it across. As soon as the next room begins, immediately start jumping. As soon as that load screen ends up happening, you will be attacked by 2 gargoyles. If you time it right, you can jump past the gargoyles and get to the next door without too much trouble. The next room, I recommend taking out the 2 zombie enemies. You can pick up the red crystals they drop if need be, and then go right through the next staircase. As we begin the next room, drop on down safely to the bottom, and then make a leap over to the left, landing on this ledge, and then drop down each ledge till you finally make it here. Once on this one, pull yourself up and make another big giant leap over to the left. Slowly follow this zombie. Don't even worry about attacking him since he's walking to the left already. You can just kind of sneak behind him and get to that next important door. In the next room, wait for the gate to rise and then go across underneath of it and do the same for the traps, following it up right afterwards. Run all the way through this corridor. You'll see a bunch of enemies trying to pop up from above and below, but if you keep running, you'll eventually make it to an eyeball. I count the prison cells in the background to know when that eyeball is coming. It's 5 of those prison cells, and then it's a slide that we need to do in order to get past that eyeball. The next boss is a very difficult one. My strategy isn't the best, but I found it pretty efficient, and that is, well, taking damage to speed this fight along. Every time you deliver a combo to this boss, he disappears and ends up firing out these very annoying projectiles. They are able to be dodged, but the thing is, this enemy's lunging ability that he does most of the time when you're not dealing with the projectiles is extremely hard to dodge, and a lot of times I have a hard time getting in and actually delivering attacks to this boss. So I found the best strategy, as long as you have full health, go into the fight, and every time he delivers one of those attacks with the projectiles, he then immediately stands back up if he hit you. If he doesn't hit you, he then fires out multiple of them until eventually reforming, and it can be tricky to get that combo going right after he reforms. So, if you take damage, not only does the fight become actually easier, it also gets done a lot quicker as well. As we begin the next level, start off by running to the right, but be careful, there's a cracked floor that you want to avoid, so make sure you jump over that. Then if you do another big running leap, you can actually bypass that first zombie-like enemy on the bottom platform. Then start to slowly pull yourself upwards, but be careful of the flame-throwing thing at the top. These guys will cause a lot of damage to you, and just like everything else, it's timing to get past them. On this platform here, jump upwards, climbing up, watching out for the spikes popping down here, and then climb up the next ledge just after that. Now the next area is a bit confusing. There's several switches and the like that we're going to be hitting throughout this area. We're going to start off going to the left, watching out for the buzzsaw and timing our jumps accordingly to get around those flames. Dropping down here, you can hit a switch over to the left and climb up, and then hit another switch just above that on the wall, which will push this wall over to the right side. Now this spot, I could have continued over to the right to get to the one chest, and I actually will still show that path, but I attempted to go up here and over to the right. I thought maybe I could potentially slide underneath the wall, but once I got there, I was like, no, of course I couldn't. There is the switch, though, against the wall that we will be pressing. Now, instead of going over to the right and continuing, we're going to drop on back down to this area here, and I'm going to show you where that chest is and how to get to it. Once over here, watch out for the saw, and you'll make a couple of jumps over, watching out for the zombie, of course, popping out of the wall. After climbing up a couple of more ledges and watching out for another one of those buzzsaws down below, we reach the location of where that chest is if you want to go ahead and grab it. Even if you don't need it right this second, we're going to go past now and actually continue on, but I did want to show at least how to get to that location. That's normally the path I was taking throughout most of my runs. Climbing up here, though, now we're going to continue on over, get up to this platform. You can see the gate opening and closing. Be careful of that, and you can grab another chest on the left side here. This is one of those chests that contains one of those very useful blue crystals, as well as it does have another green crystal inside of it as well to replenish some of our health. As soon as you hit the button, though, it will cause a buzzsaw to pop out, so you want to make sure you avoid it, if possible, in order to get that chest without being taken out by one of those buzzsaws. Here you have to time it very carefully, hitting the switch, and then doing a running slide while also avoiding the spikes coming down from the ceiling. Just so many ways to potentially die instantly in this level. In the next room, thankfully, we finally make it to that next room, and we're immediately met by more spikes coming down, a small gate just barely opening up, while we also have to avoid fire. Instead of running, I recommend doing a leap, as you can get over the fire and through the gate, hopefully without getting hit. As we begin the next room, head over to the right and drop on down here. You'll then be able to push this wall over to the left and then climb on up. Getting up here, you can then get to this chest. If you don't need any extra time or health or anything like that, you don't have to grab this chest, but this level is pretty long, so you're probably going to be getting short on time at this point, so it's a good idea to go ahead and grab it, and it doesn't take too much of your time in order to do it. Then you want to push the wall over to the right this time, and then climb on up to continue on. In the next room, you'll see one of those enemies right to the right of us. Take out the zombie guys. It's easier to take him out before we continue by climbing on up. A lot of times if I try to climb before taking him out, he just ends up hitting me with his baton, causing some damage. Wait for the flame to dissipate for a second, and then do a running slide underneath. In the next area, we're going to climb on up. If you press the switch, a buzzsaw will start coming out. Just carefully get right up to the top. It's hard sometimes not to press that button. Either way, just keep on climbing up. After the wall gets moved, you'll watch out for another flame, stand where the flame is coming from, and then attempt to go past the spikes. It's just easier that way. Then do a running slide underneath the next set of spikes popping out of the wall. In this room, we're going to hit this switch, allowing us now to do another big leap. We're going to go all the way over to the right to hit this switch. It's key that we make this jump all the way over here in order to get to it, and then we're going to drop on down to this platform here. Don't drop down too fast so that you end up in that spiky pit below. Then on the far right of the wall, you can see the next staircase we're going to be taking. Just climb on up, watching out for a couple more sets of flame, and finally be able to hit that door. A lot of times I end up taking at least a little bit of damage from the flame. It's hard to get the animation to go up the stairs to activate before the fire ends up coming back out. In the next room, start by immediately climbing. You can hit the switch over to the right. You want to try to time it so that the buzzsaw stops below past the doors so that you'll easily be able to just go through and not have any problems making it to that next room. Unfortunately, in the next room, my controller got knocked out of my hand, and it took me a few moments to finally be able to sit back down and continue playing, so I ended up standing still for a little bit of time. So I'm just going to fast forward just a tiny bit, as you'll see the time lapse at the bottom. Just one of the many hazards of trying to record with multiple pets in the room with you at the same time. Now, when we finally get back going, we're going to immediately run into a slide to get past that gate, and you have another quick hallway with a lot of spikes trying to crash in on top of you. Be careful in this room, making a leap over to the right. We can hit this switch in order to get the gate to pull up, so be careful and slowly climb up before the gate ends up coming back down. The next room, we're going to hit a couple of these switches, jumping over and then going through that next open gate. After a rather lengthy level, we are finally now at the end of the stage, taking out these gargoyles and pick up a little bit of health just so I have my full set before this boss encounter. Now this boss is a giant rock golem guy. It can be a bit tricky. What you do is, we're going to duck underneath his projectiles when he fires them out, but basically just deliver a combo, he'll break apart, and then we're going to go the opposite direction. Start to walk that way, and he'll reform on the other side of the screen. By the time he reforms, we can time it right in order to deliver another combo. Eventually, he ends up turning into a giant foot trying to crush you. Just keep on moving or do a nicely timed jump to avoid it, or if it crashes on you, thankfully it doesn't do too much damage. Once the foot, though, does end up falling, he will reform into his golem body, and you can deliver another one of those nicely timed combos. Just keep repeating until he's taken care of, and we're moving on to the final level of Nosferatu. The last level of the game starts us off with a fight here against one of these zombie guys. Easier just to take him out with our combos instead of just trying to run past him. Then do a nice running slide underneath the first wall. All throughout this level, there are these annoying paintings in the background that will try to swing at you in order to do damage. They do all swing differently, so it can be tricky to kind of get past them, but a lot of times either jumping at the right moments or just a nicely timed slide can get past a lot of them. In the small corridor, push the wall over to the right so then you have enough space to slide underneath. These evil statues in the background do similar to the paintings and will constantly try to swing at you as well throughout the course of this level. Drop on down here, take out the big fat abomination guy, doing like we've been before, either jump kicks and then a nice combo to send him away and then repeating those nicely timed kicks. Over here to the right, we need to slide underneath here. Unfortunately in the game, if you end up falling from too far of a distance, or you jump into the wall, or jump into the wrong enemy, you end up crashing and losing your crystals, and that's why it's essential to know how you can maneuver your character without accidentally falling on your face. Thankfully in this room though, we can gather some extra stuff. The other chests, the ones I didn't grab, all contain just traps. This ghost pops out and ends up doing damage to you, so I just end up avoiding those chests because of it, but that first one ends up having that precious blue crystal, so as you can see we have a pretty decent amount of health now at the bottom. Jump on over here to the left side here and then drop on down to this ledge, climbing back up so that you're now on this platform. Take your time though, because there will be spikes crashing on down, so we need to slowly walk our way through. At the edge, drop on down. You'll see that there is a spiky pit and a set of spikes. So what you want to do is just do a nicely timed jump, not too far over to the left that you crash into the wall, but instead safely land next to that spike. After another series of jumps over some more spiky pits, we'll land down on this platform, taking out another one of those big fat dudes. Make a running leap over to the far left so that you can avoid falling into the spiky pit of death. Right after that, you have another one of those annoying spike traps out of the wall, so climb on down slowly, and you'll immediately then crash through a breakaway platform just below that. Climb up here in order to hit this switch, will then open up the door just below you. In the next room, do immediately another giant running leap over to the big gap in order to land safely, and then pull yourself up. A couple more of those evil paintings, one of which fires out arrows. They consistently keep coming at you. It can be pretty annoying getting past those. That immediately gets reinforced by the next one right afterwards as I try to grab this chest. Since I did lose one of my crystals, I want to make sure that I have plenty of the crystals and health as we make it closer to the end of the game. On the far right here, push this switch in order then to open up the next doorway. In the next room, we're going to start heading on down. It can be tricky, you don't want to fall too fast so that you end up dying just because of fall damage. Over here, drop on down. You can cause this platform to break apart, but you want to slowly climb down. This will allow you hopefully to land safely and duck underneath the flying spear that's going to come your way. Just below that is a chest so you can replenish your crystals and some of your health if need be. Don't jump off these platforms to slowly climb down. Time it so you can get past the spikes popping out of the floor and make it to the bottom so you can get to another door. The fun doesn't stop in this level for a second. As we make it to the next corridor, watch out for the spikes popping out of the wall. You can drop down the gap and then take out a couple of those evil zombie guys. Here, do another running slide underneath, then push this over to the right and do another running slide underneath this pillar. Right after that though, instead of going over to the right, we're going to start climbing on upwards. Jump over to the left side here and then do a running slide underneath this platform and continue over to the far left doing runs and jumps to try to avoid the flying axe enemies trying to hit you as they move back and forth. Climb up here and do a running dash underneath here in order to find another chest in case you need some more crystals. As we get farther into the level, you may have taken some damage throughout. It's very hard not to end up getting hit throughout most of this level, so if you've taken any, it's nice to know where those extra chests are so you can try to replenish some of it before the final boss. Up here, wait for the fat guy to go over to the left and then do the jumping kicks and combos in order to knock him over so you don't end up having him run into you. He'll hit you whether you duck or not, so that's why you gotta keep him at a distance. Over here, hit the button and do a running slide as you do so to get underneath that gate. We've done that plenty of times now, so hopefully you're able to do it pretty easily. Here we have another couple of paintings above us, but we're just going to do a running leap and safely make it over the large gap. Right after that, there's a couple of traps. You can see one below us and spikes above. We're just going to climb on down, slowly shimmying, and then what we do is press the button against the wall, but then duck immediately to avoid the spikes and then backtrack to the door. We are almost to that final chamber. Start off by climbing up top here, do a big leap over to the right. You can then push the series of pillars over to the right, do a running slide, and then push it back over to the left, giving you enough space now to run underneath the other pillar. Climb up here, watching out for more of those evil paintings in the background, doing some nicely timed jumps over the traps on the floor. Don't run, you'll just end up getting hit by at least one of the enemies, if not worse, the trap on the floor. In the next room, drop on down, hitting the button so that you stop the blade and then get past it. Right after that, you'll have another switch that will hit the order to stop the blade. If you need the chest, stop the blade away from it, but if you're good on your health and crystals, just avoid that chest if need be. If you make a nicely timed leap, you can avoid another zombie before dealing with another evil buzzsaw trap. You have a couple more of these on the floor to deal with in this room. Do a nice running slide underneath the next pillar. Take out this zombie, guys. It's easier to deal with him than trying to get past. Pick up the crystal if you do need it. You may have taken some damage or lost a crystal. And then slide underneath the last pillar to go through this door. It's now time for the battle against Nosferatu, the final boss of the game. As the battle begins, Nosferatu will fly overhead and then try to crash down. If he lands on you, it will end up hurting you, so you want to stand just a little bit to the left or right of it, and hopefully get him in a combo right after. At any point during the fight, if he uses his arms to kind of grab you and choke you, or if he uses his telekinetic powers to rise you up into the air, mash the button so that you can get out of it before he ends up slamming you and you'll be able to avoid taking damage. After doing a few combos, this fight ends up turning into a giant bat battle as it will try to crash into you with flying kicks. If you time your jump kicks just right, you can actually keep him at bay completely. It takes a while, and you won't be able to do any damage really during this form. It's just kind of waiting it out and avoiding as many of his attacks as possible before eventually he turns back into his human form. He'll then repeat the process of trying to crash on down, wait for him, and deliver another combo, and a lot of times it's just luck. If you're able to deliver a combo to him before he ends up grabbing you and trying to choke you, a lot of times he'll just end up negating your combo and grab you instead. Just be persistent. You don't want to be too close to him after delivering a combo, just enough space that you can deliver your next one and be able to hit him before he hits you. Once you deliver the final hit though, you get to sit back and enjoy the ending to Nosferatu on the Super Nintendo. So there you have it, Nosferatu for the SNES, an interesting horror game. It's not the best by any means, but I do like a lot of the animation and just design of the game. It's one of those kind of like almost hidden gems of the Super Nintendo era, and one of my favorite horror themed games that ended up being on the system. It's a very difficult game, but it's one of those ones that once I was able to kind of figure out how to get past it, beating it actually felt like an accomplishment for sure, especially tackling the hard mode. My favorite part of the credits is all the other guys who've been real supportive. Everybody who's been real supportive gets credit for this game. So good for you guys for being very supportive to get Nosferatu released. I just absolutely love that little part of the credits. As we finish up though, we get produced by Seta Corporation and the end screen. After the end screen though, we actually get one last screen giving us a couple of cheat codes for max crystals as well as a stage select code. After that though, the game goes back to the opening cutscene in the main menu. You can start the game all over again. But with that, it's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.